People in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are bracing themselves as post-tropical cyclone Lee packs strong winds and heavy rain. Global meteorologist Anthony Farnell is in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia with the latest on the storm. Anthony, what's the status?
Well, it's post-tropical, you mentioned that, and basically that just means it no longer has a warm core, which you would find in a hurricane or a tropical storm. But the end result is the same. Very gusty winds, heavy rain, a storm surge, and waves crashing onto the Atlantic side of the coast, in some cases 8 to 10 meters high. Now, it's been a very active hurricane season. We have other ones out there. In fact, a new named storm expected shortly. But really, it's Lee that we've been watching for a couple of weeks. At one point, it was Category 5 strength, now weakening, but the wind field has expanded out to encompass about 600 kilometers across. And that's one of the reasons why these waves are so big. And those winds in the last couple of hours have hit almost 120 kilometers per hour at the Halifax airport. And this is occurring across the province into New Brunswick. So the Bay of Fundy is impacted and power outage numbers are going up as well. All of this as this storm is slowing as it approaches the coast. So it's going to be a long day today. And we're expecting these winds to only slowly subside as we go through the night and into the day on Sunday.
When are we expected to see the worst of this storm?
Well, I think through the middle of the afternoon. That's the biggest wind threat. That's also a high tide. Late morning, early afternoon is when we're expecting high tide here in Yarmouth. The winds are still offshore, and that is good news. If we had an onshore flow after the eye passes, that would bring an extra storm surge on top of high tide. If it occurs a little later in the day, as the water's going out, that would save a lot of the fishing boats, a lot of the low-lying areas. So that, I guess, is a sliver of good news. But those winds, they are going to continue, and there are power crews that are just waiting for conditions to improve so they can start tackling some of the trees that have come down and some of the power lines that need repairing. And I do think that is going to be the biggest problem as we go through the next couple of days, is getting everybody back online after a post-tropical storm Lee.
Again, you're in Yarmouth. What are you seeing right now?
Well, it's calm. This is what's incredible when you cover these hurricanes or post-tropical storms. It goes from calm, and then you get all of a sudden heavy rain, gusty winds, and then right back to calm. So it's just every time that occurs, you get caught off guard, even if you know it's coming. So we're waiting for the center. The barometric pressure, I've been tracking that all morning, is going down. So the storm is still out in the ocean, but the center is going to pass overhead and then into the Bay of Fundy, and that will increase water levels as well. So that's all occurring as we go through Saturday afternoon, and those winds, as I mentioned, expanding out to encompass most of the Maritimes on this Saturday.
Before we let you go, Anthony, how does this storm compare to others that have hit the region, like Hurricane Fiona?
Yeah, Hurricane Fiona almost a year ago. That was mostly for Cape Breton, Newfoundland. Yes, it did extend. It was a very large wind field as well. The big difference with that, it was a much larger and stronger storm, the equivalent of a Category 2 hurricane. So this tropical storm conditions, maybe a hurricane gust or two, but it is a weaker storm overall. Still, it is hitting at a time when maritime residents are weary. They've had, remember, in the last few months, they've had fires, they've had floods, and there is the threat of more flooding with up to 100 millimeters of rain. So just residents on edge saying, okay, what's next? Here we go. But they're handling it so far fairly well. Back to you.
Our chief meteorologist Anthony Farnell with a breakdown on post-tropical cyclone Lee. Thanks, Anthony.